the school committee to order. We've had a bit of a technical glitch this evening, unfortunately, but we worked our way through it. In particular, our Zoom meeting link was from last meeting, not from today, so we're reusing an old one. Most of it on Facebook, shared with RCTV, so hopefully everything works out. We'll start with the going through the agenda, and we have a rather large audience here this evening because we have quite a few students to recognize, and we're excited about that. So we'll do that. So our first thing is our focus on excellence, which includes the recognition of the class of 2024 National Merit Scholars, many of which are here with us this evening, and the 2023-2024 Massachusetts Association of School Superintendent Certificate of Academic Excellence. Say that fast a few times. And then we'll go. So that'll kick us off in the right mode, and then we jump into our consent agenda, and we have reports. Hopefully, Ms. Callahan, you got a report from Emily. I don't know where you went to. She was. Do you? Yes? Good enough? Okay. So she'll fill in for Emily since she's at a big game this evening. And then from there we go into the new business, and we'll go through an overview of the ARC K-2 implementation, including some Hill for Literacy related stuff that we have going on for many of our staff members. And then we will have the FY23 end of year financial update, which does include 4 budget transfers in it. And then we'll also have our first review of the Special Education Reserve Fund and where that stands. At which point we will adjourn not to return to executive session for our Teachers Association, Paraeducators Association, and Secretaries Association. So with that said, Dr. Milcheski, I'm going to hand it over to you to get us started.
Great. So this evening we're going to start with national merit, so I'll invite up Principal Callahan to get us going.
Come in here or over there?
Come over here. Sit next to Chuck. He doesn't bite.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get up to hand these to them. So is this way?
Yeah.
How are you? Good evening, everyone. I am Principal Callahan from Reading Memorial High School, and on behalf of the school committee and Dr. Milcheski and the district staff, as well as the Reading Memorial High School team, we're here tonight to recognize some very accomplished students. The following students, and how I'll do this because I'm sitting here in front of you, is I will read the names and read the great things about all of you, and then I'll meet you over there at the podium to hand you your certificates, okay? So the following students have been named as commended students in the 2024 National Merit Scholarship Program. Ruby R. Allen, Callan P. Haru, Brendan P. Hoffman, Maureen P. Manning, Vedant S. Narayan, William C. O'Connor, Lily A. Powell, and Hannah R. Wiggins. A letter of commendation, which I have here, from the school and the National Merit Scholarship Corporation, which conducts this program, is going to be presented this evening to these scholastically talented students. About 34,000 commended students throughout the nation are being recognized for their exceptional academic promise. Although they will not continue in the 2024 competition for National Merit Scholarship Awards, commended students place among the top 50,000 students who entered in the 2024 competition by taking the 2022 preliminary SAT. Those being named as commended students have demonstrated outstanding potential for academic success. This comes from one of the leaders of the National Merit Scholarship Program. These students represent a valuable national resource, recognizing their accomplishments as well as the key role their schools play in their academic development. They are vital to the advancement of our educational excellence in our nation. We hope that this recognition will help broaden your educational opportunities and encourage you as you continue to pursue your academic success. In addition, Reading Memorial High School is also very excited to announce that another one of our students, Yi Yang or Ian Zhao, is continuing in the 2024 National Merit Scholarship Program as a semifinalist. This evening, Ian is present with his family to be formally recognized. However, he is not yet being presented a letter or certificate because based on his 2022 PSAT scores, he is still competing for a National Merit Scholarship Award. We are very pleased to extend our congratulations to Ian and his family, as well as all the students being recognized this evening. Your accomplishments are your own, but we also want to pay tribute this evening to your families, teachers, counselors, coaches, and mentors that work to inspire and support each of you each and every day. Congratulations. Let me start by calling you guys up, one at a time. Ruby Allen. Ruby here? Okay, I'll find her tomorrow. Good job. Callan Haru. Okay. Brendan Hoffman. Maureen P. Manning. Vedant Narayan. William C. O'Connor. Lily A. Powell. And Hannah R. Wiggins. And I just want to call Ian up here, even though we don't have a certificate for him, so we can congratulate and embarrass him in front of everyone. Come on up, Ian. Thank you.
So I think we have, I'm sure there's maybe a member or two of the committee who would like to share a couple of words too, and then we're going to ask everyone to come up for a photo. I would just like to congratulate all of the students on absolutely tremendous academic accomplishment. I think one number I looked up today was how many students had taken it has 1.3 million. So if you run those numbers really quick, 50,000 out of 1.3 million. Anyone? Quick? Where that puts you? 96th, 97th percentile, which is an absolutely incredible demonstration of academic achievement. And I think speaking to our high school administration and to our counselors, we know that just this measure of academic achievement, I think reflects some of the other work that you've all been doing in your coursework. This is not an anomaly for you. You continue to demonstrate excellence in all of your coursework in the classroom, through your GPA, through just academic leadership. Everything that you do from on behalf of the administration and from the counseling staff share that you are students who model and embody what it means to be true academic scholars in our community. So I just want to thank you for this recognition, but also thank you for your continued academic excellence in our community. And I think all of us really look forward to following your successes in the years to come. So thank you and congratulations.
Anybody have anything to add? I think you said it all. I don't think there's anything we can add to that. So. I think it would be great, though, for those of you that are here, we'd love to get a picture with all of the students who were just recognized, at least for themselves, but hopefully with us as well. So if one or two parents are willing to take a picture, then we can use that at a later point in time, if that's okay.
How about just the mountains?
That's next.
Okay, good.
That's next.
All right.
So don't worry.
Okay.
Why not? Yeah.
I'm almost like, I'm gonna check out.
Can't see us, the students are great. Awesome. Focus on the students.
Smile.
All right, anybody else? One more? One more? All right, great job, you all. Thank you. Congratulations.
We have one more academic award, and then So if anyone can hang tight for this, I think this is also an exciting part of the night too, and then the agenda may get less exciting after that. So, but this is just my. I am speaking for myself, but so the other award or recognition that we'd like to share tonight is an award that's given across the state to seniors, graduating seniors. The award's the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Certificate of Academic Excellence. In short, to qualify for this award, students need to be in the top 5% of their graduating class, and then the other criteria is embody academic excellence within their school community. So we know that we have a pool of extremely qualified candidates across our school. Our administration and our guidance and our counseling team went through sort of the student body and tried to narrow the list and identify down, which is a really difficult process, but ultimately tonight are thrilled to recognize 2 students who they think are great models and leaders and examples of academic excellence in our community. Just a little bit more context in the award, then I'll read a little bit about each recipient. The first piece is depending on the size of the school, that dictates sort of how many awards are given. So it's anywhere between 1 to 5 awards, given that we expect to have, we're in the 250 to 500 student band, which gives us 2 recipients for a school of our size. So the first recipient we'd like to congratulate is Isabella Ring. I'm going to read a little bit about Isabella, which was a little bit of a narrative that was written by her counselor, Steve Kennedy, too. So Isabella Ring is an exceptional student and a well-rounded individual who is deserving of the recognition she is receiving this evening. As a student at Reading Memorial High School, Bella has consistently challenged herself by enrolling in the most rigorous courses available to her. She prefers math and science courses, but has exhibited impressive aptitude in all subjects. As a senior, Bella is taking AP Biology and Anatomy and Physiology in an effort to strengthen her foundation in life sciences. Bella hopes to major in biology in college, and although she has not decided exactly what she will do, she hopes to enter the medical field in the future. Beyond the classroom, Bella is a dedicated and talented dancer. In addition to her own artistic pursuit, Bella gives back by volunteering as a dance teacher to middle school students and serves as a dance captain to elementary school students. In both roles, she instructs, guides, and mentors the students by creating an inclusive, supportive environment in which they thrive as dancers and members of the community. Bella teaches CCD at St. Agnes Parish and has volunteered at the Barrows School in Reading and the Vincent Owen School in Winchester. In addition, she has worked at the Extended Day program at Wood End and the Rise Preschool Summer Program. In summary, Bella is an exceptional role model for the students with whom she works and for her peers. This example she has set as a student and member of the Reading community is one to be admired by all. Congratulations. And our second recipient is Mark Malley. Congratulations to Mark. And this narrative is written by Megan Rondeau, Mark's counselor. Mark is an exceptional, well-rounded student, and more importantly, an amazing human being. He's an outstanding AP and honors student who stands near the top of his class. Mark has a strong interest in the AP science courses and hopes to pursue a career in engineering. He is dedicated, curious, intelligent, and above all, a leader. He was nominated to be a Rocket Ambassador by several teachers and is the perfect student to be a mentor and role model to freshman students. I have seen him rise to every challenge that is presented to him, and he always does so with a smile. On top of this, Mark is the captain of both his winter and spring track teams. He spent the summer volunteering at Coolidge Middle School with a janitorial crew, helping to clean the building, move furniture, and get ready for the next school year. He is also a dedicated member of A World of Difference, where he and other like-minded students advocate for equality and acceptance at RMHS. When not volunteering his time, Mark also works as a basketball referee for local kids and works at Caloresco's farm stand. I am in constant awe of Mark's achievements and continuously impressed that he manages to be such an involved member of this community while still being a top-achieving student. No one is more deserving of this recognition than Mark Malley, and RMHS is so lucky to have him in our community. He will be dearly missed next year. Congratulations, Mark. So your certificates are in the mail from MASS, but we did want to present them prior to, I know both of you are applying to colleges in the next couple of days and want to make sure that you had the chance to get that on your application materials. I would also just like to share too, while this award centers around academic excellence, you can see sort of all of the other ways that both Mark and Bella have led in our community and have led by example in all the different ways that they've been involved. So I think just what a humbling experience for me to be able to read all of your achievements, accomplishments, accomplishments and contributions, and we just thank you and congratulate you. You're clearly so well regarded by this RMHS community, so thank you and congratulations.
Dr. Milichewski took all the words again. I think we're all exceedingly proud of all of the students that we recognize this evening, I'll just say that. It's an honor to be able to recognize you at a meeting like this, and I think it sets the tone for what we're trying to do here, to continue to improve the outcomes, and you guys are examples of what we've already done, and what you've already done more than us, I suppose, because you all are exceptional. I look at so many of the faces in the crowd, and I've known some of you for so long, and I'm so proud of the work you all have done, so just keep it up. This is just, it's the end of the beginning, but it's the beginning of the end, I guess. You got a long way to go. With that said, I'd love to do another set of pictures, and Bella and Mark, come on up. And
And thank you to all the parents for joining tonight. And I just think, as a parent myself, I think what can you hear anything better about your kids or be any more proud of your kids? And these are exactly what we want to hear people saying about our students. So just thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for your contributions in raising such amazing students and amazing kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
okay, so we now are going to move on to the consent agenda. And we have our minutes and quite a few donations in that list. So, Aaron, will you start us off?
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Seconded by Chuck. Any further discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0. Okay, so we'll now move on to reports. And we would start with Emily. So, Ms. Callahan, as a proxy.
Hi again. So Emily and Tamia send their regrets. They're both down in the gym right now. One is in cheer practice and the other one is competing to beat Lexington. So we did have a meeting today of the Student Advisory Committee. Mr. Wise was able to attend, which was great. And we did elect the 3 additional board members on the committee. So pretty soon we'll have a full committee. I have not told them who the winners are yet, so I'm not going to say that today because I feel like that's not fair. So I will tell them tomorrow and tell you guys tomorrow. So our report that I will do in lieu of Emily not being here is that one, we're very proud that this week we conducted a PSAT during the school day, which was a major undertaking, and we did have a delayed opening, but we tested over almost 450 students in grades 10 and 11. And I think a lot of times people have different sentiments about the College Board, which this assessment is through the College Board. However, this is an assessment that opens a lot of doors for students, and bringing it into the school day, although it is a sacrifice, makes it so it's much more accessible. And we had many more students take it than in the past when it's on the weekend. And so I think it was a good decision. I think it's going to open a lot of doors for our kids in terms of dual enrollment, access to college, information from College Board, to help them start thinking about their future after high school. Next week, and I also want to give a little shout out to Lena Williams, who organized this Herculean effort. It was the first time that it was online, so that made it really fun. But we did it without any problems, and but it's all to her attention to detail. Next week, we are actually participating in 2 HBCU events. So there is a college all HBCU colleges are meeting at Reggie Lewis next Thursday, and many of our students, including our Boston resident students and students from Reading, are going to attend for the day, and they're going to do the afternoon with a lunch at the Metco headquarters in Boston, which is very close to Reggie Lewis. And then those that have practice or are returning to Reading will come back, and the Boston resident students that are done will go back home as if it was a regular school day. Prior to that, we're actually going to host the colleges here on Wednesday, where they're going to meet with our counselors. They're going to have a panel here with students that's open to all students, and then meet, well, like a brunch with our administration. I'd like to extend an invite to the school committee and obviously the whole district staff as well. I think that I want to celebrate the accomplishments of our students on and off, in the classroom, but also out of the classroom. Many of our athletic teams are doing very, very well. Our student athletes, you know, I expect them to conduct themselves better. It is a privilege to participate in athletics and activities in high school, and they're ambassadors for our school when they're doing so. And so that is what I tell them. And you know, they're rising to the occasion. I also want to celebrate our field hockey team that was #1 in the power rankings this week. We're very excited about that. Theater, robotics is off to a great start. DECA is expanding this year, which we're very excited about. National Honor Society induction is coming up of our current seniors who are already notified, so they can include it in applications, but that will be November 6th at 7 p.m. in the PAC. Our band is doing an amazing job. They're also all in the gym right now, all in the field house, celebrating the volleyball team. The dance team actually made their debut recently. It's a new team at the football game, but they're also participating in some competitions. They were awesome. We're very excited to have this new team at the high school. And last week we had an activities fair that we have over 45 clubs and activities at the high school, and so to get kids to be a little bit more involved, I made them do a scavenger hunt. Some of them were a little bit more excited about it than others, but 9th and 10th graders did that, and then when they went back to their flex blocks, either that day or the following Tuesday, the Rocket ambassadors were in there to talk to them about getting involved and getting more engaged in some of our clubs and activities. And I think just the next thing is that our seniors are very stressed because their college applications are coming due. One big deadline is November 1st, which also is stressful on our counselors, people writing letters of recommendation. So there's a little bit of I feel like a buzz in the school, but it's all for good. And so that's where we are so far. I'm really proud of how the school is doing, and everybody's working together, and you know, this is kind of when it kind of sets in that we're in the school year and the winter is coming, so we're trying to do things to make sure everybody stays happy and positive too. Any questions?
Will you send us an email for the invite that you just gave?
National Honor Society or?
HBCU.
Yes, I'll send you all invitations, definitely, of course. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
and we will move on to
Hi, everyone. I just have one quick update for you. One of the things that you may remember I talked about last spring was something new that we're adding to professional learning for our staff this year, focused having 5 staff members in our district to provide job-embedded professional learning for our teachers. And 2 of those positions in particular were something that we talked about a great deal through the budget process, our K-8 math coaches. So I just wanted to give you a quick update tonight, sort of how that initial rollout is going. We did a good amount of work in the spring with our building leaders to ensure that we had clear job descriptions and so that the folks coming in would be set up for success. And so our 2 K-8 math coaches, Lana Matero and Alyssa Nelson, have settled into their positions. We have established a monthly coaching meeting, which actually has all of our job-embedded professional learning staff meeting together with our K-8 humanities coordinator, Erin Burchell, and our K-8 interim STEM coordinator, Marianne Lynn. And the focus of those meetings is calibrating what professional learning looks like when it's job embedded, so that our teachers can start to expect a similar experience regardless which coach they're working with. and also for the coaches to share with each other and grow their community of practice. So what we've seen right away is that because the roles of our job-embedded coaches are slightly different, so Renee Lamaro is our special education literacy coach, she might have different things to contribute versus Karen Hall, who's our MLL director. But really, when you start pairing those positions and having meaningful conversations about how to support our teachers in the actual work they're doing in their classroom with students, is really when we see that biggest shift in practice or supportive teachers that makes a difference for kids that day or the next day in the classroom. So we're very excited about that. Our math coaches too, if you remember, one of the buckets that work was really going to fall in for them this year was some of the professional development opportunities for our staff. So already, our math coaches have helped to lead one of our middle school early release day, the department, math department meeting. And in that time, they were able to help teachers with their analysis of math MCAS. Additionally, they've started working with our middle school math teachers on a protocol to have math chats with students using their iReady results. So really helping to bring our students into their learning process in a way that is focusing on student strengths, but also focusing on next steps. So those are just some examples. And we are also really excited about the amount of teachers that have been inviting our K-8 math coaches into their classrooms to model lessons, to look at student data, et cetera. So it is an early start still, and I hope to be able to come back and continue to report good news to you. We also have put in place some structures to track data, see how much the coaches are being accessed, the type of work that they're doing. So I can share that with you, of course, at the end of the year after we've tracked that. But it's very promising, and we are seeing a really nice response from our educators that this is supportive of their work.
Great. Any questions? Dr. Pinto?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I do have a thank you offer to both our METCO staff and our food services staff who collaborated on a very special event in recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month. So it was on October 12th. They collaborated with a Dominican restaurant to serve authentic Dominican food in the high school cafeteria for all 3 meals. And so it was nice to have students exposed to food if they hadn't been from another country, another culture. Met with very positive reviews, so thanks to the staffs for collaborating on a meaningful event that was well received.
Dr. Milczewski?
Great, just one thank you and then one quick update. The one thank you, I'd just like to loop back to our last meeting, thank Al Sumner and Edward Sanfey, 2 students that came up to share their kind of their testimony, their experience in RPS. It's not easy standing in front of a group and being recorded on TV, and I thought they both did a wonderful job, so I appreciate both of their leadership and stepping up to do that. Also like to announce something that'll be shared tomorrow in our district updates, but Lego League will be back at the middle school level. We know there's been a lot of conversation and demand in the community on this. So first, like to thank Chris Nelson and his team and Extended Day. Their office right now has just been inundated with the huge increase in demand in both Extended Day and also driver's ed. So I just also adding on something at this point, but I think they realize and they really want to be responsive to the needs of the community. And we know we have a lot of students who are really interested in Lego League. So signups you can sign up now, middle school students. We're hoping to have at least 3 teams at each school. We know it could get bigger than that too. And then the goal is to also expand that back down to get elementary schools involved next year as well too. But we figured it was just kind of starting with middle school, and also thank you to the Robockets who have volunteered to be assistant coaches for a lot of our teams, and we think that that'll help us to get some of that off the ground and running too. So hopefully get some interest and excitement about that, and thank you for the community for advocating.
Great, thank you. And we'll move on to liaison and subcommittee reports, focused on what the school committee needs to hear. So Chuck?
So I don't, Monday night, we had a charter review meeting. We didn't really get into, eventually they'll be coming to the school committee about, if there's anything in the charter that we think might need to be changed. The other thing is Jeff Beckwith, who's the recently retired director of the Mass Municipal Association, is also a Reading resident and on the committee. He invited some town managers from other communities who came in and kind of talked to us about how our charter is pretty good, relative to what they see. So it's going to be a long process. This is round 2 for me on charter review, but it's a big group, there's 9 of us, so there'll be more to come on that, but they will be reaching out to probably you, Tom, at some point. The SWEC met Tuesday night, and I've got my, and I'm just being a wise guy, I probably got my 10th update on dog parks and pickleball courts. That dominated most of our conversation and getting ready for town meeting. And we did get a response to our RFI, which we were happy and surprised about. And we talked about that a little bit. And so, again, a lot more work to do with that, but hopefully we'll be able to do something with that land.
Okay, thank you. Carla?
Thank you. Just an update with Killam Building Committee. We received our request for services, and we have 4 bids from different designers for proposals that the committee is reviewing. And tomorrow, Dr. Pinto and I will be going to a story of a building in East Hampton, Mass. So I attended one of these with Susan last year, and it was fabulous. We just get a lot of information, so we'll see how that goes. It's an all-day conference, so we'll report back.
Great, thank you. Sarah?
Just a quick update, the RCTV board met on Tuesday, and just, they're in budget season like the rest of us, so I had reached out, we'll be meeting with Dr. Pinto just to talk about some of the teaching and materials and use, et cetera, so they can start doing their planning for moving forward, so, thank you.
Yeah, so CPAC had their first business meeting of the year on Tuesday, and they elected a new board. It's exciting because they had a lot of interest this year, and sometimes that's been harder to do than others. So Eunice Kenyon and Lindsay Conti are returning, and then Dilly Wilson, Zia Leonard, Jacqueline Lee, and Chris Kowaleski are joining, and Maria Morgan is stepping down. So thank you, Maria, for all of your dedication. I know you'll still be present. And then PAIR had an informal gathering last night. There's a new Director of Equity and Social Justice. His name is Albert Pless. He's officially started. So I'm sure we'll all get the chance to meet him if you haven't. And PAIR, he'll be taking over PAIR, and they'll continue on the same schedule.
Okay. A couple quick things. Ms. Callahan mentioned the Student Advisory Committee. We did have a meeting this morning, so I could introduce to them the role and, what we do and whatnot. We are going to try to adhere to the schedule of meeting with them every other month, as MGL says. We're going to try to start that at the next meeting, November 2nd. And then one in January, one in March, and one in May. So we would then have 4 meetings with them this year. So that was part of their understanding when they applied to be one of the 5 members of the official committee as well. And we promised them they could attend virtually if necessary. So we'll have that structure set up as well. So I don't know if the first meeting will be as structured as last year's first meeting. I expect it won't be. It probably will be more free-flowing because they haven't formed necessarily things along the lines as we have yet for last year. So far, they spent most of today talking with Catherine Franzetti about food. They have a lot of good ideas for different things, recycling related, all sorts of other things that they were wanting to talk about with her. But they also have, discussed things that are facilities related with Ms. Callahan and whatnot. But I'm asking them to think a little bit more before November 2nd about how we can help to make sure that they're thinking about it from that perspective, the budget, policy, goals type process. So that started that. The second thing is the Finance Committee at their meeting last Wednesday voted a 4% number from an operating budget perspective versus last year. So that's a good sign for us in terms of what we were asking for. And we can talk more about that later. All right, so that's it. Let's move on. Any questions? Okay. So, Dr. Milczewski, you're going to start, or are we going to go right to Dr. Hardy?
It's Dr. Hardy.
All right.
Do you probably need to share?
I'm logged out of this computer too. Do you want to share from here?
Share the packet.
Or we can, do you know the password to get on?
No.
Rob, do you know?
Robert, do you have the password for this computer up here? Locked out,
Lock me out. We can try it.
timed out.
Go through Zoom?
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. There you go. Do you have it open, the presentation?
You want me to do it?
If you have it ready to go,
If you-
it'll take me a second.
Okay, I got it.
Do you need the code?
I don't need the card, I'll just stop you from sharing. Share.
Great. Thank you. Sorry, we're slow on that.
No problem. As long as it's the one in the packet, we're good to go. You made any changes?
I have not,
Then we're.
Then we're good to go.
not on purpose. Awesome. Yeah, jazz hands.
We got, well, this.
I also want to invite Erin Birchall, our K-8 Humanities Coordinator,
how's your mom doing?
co-facilitate from opposite sides.
Jazz hands are definitely necessary.
I don't know if I have the confidence of our students to proceed with jazz hands, but, all right.
Okay.
So we're excited tonight to give you a quick update on the ARC Core implementation plan for this year. As you know, last year, we began implementation of the ARC Core literacy program in grades 3 to 5. This year, we are completing that implementation with grades kindergarten to 2. And so the implementation, you might think, is sort of a little bit backwards, starting with the older grades and then moving to the younger grades. But if you remember, we also were working with the fact that our teachers had recently adopted a new math program. And so for our K-2 teachers last year, they were adopting a new math program, and this year are moving into a new literacy program. It's been amazing and outstanding to watch how they have done this and successfully negotiated it, and their willingness and excitement to have this for our students. So I just want to start by acknowledging the hard work of all of our teachers, K to 5. So the goal of tonight's presentation is really just to help you understand and the community understand what our implementation plan is, and to give you an overview of what that looks like. We will be back in December to talk in more specific detail about our early literacy screening and our intervention plan. So tonight's program presentation deals primarily with what we consider our Tier 1, so our implementation plan for the curriculum that all students receive. We also are excited about the plans that we have in place for our Tier 2 and Tier 3, so those are our intervention levels, but we're not going to share that tonight. We think by December, we will actually have the plan underway a bit, and we'll be able to not only share the plan, but talk with you a little bit about how it looks in action. So we'll be excited to come back. And then we'll come back again, we're proposing perhaps around February, once we're a bit further into the implementation plan that we present tonight. There are a lot of questions, and you'll see throughout the plan, the things that we're monitoring. So things that will be interesting to continue to talk about and to share with the committee and the community. And we need to have the program underway for a bit before we can share that with you. So just want you to know that we will be back to talk a little bit more specific and be able to really give you details at that point. What are we seeing in the classroom and how are our students responding? So, awesome. Next slide.
Hi, everybody. Excited to be here tonight. And apparently 3 times this year. It's up from last year, so I'm excited. I just wanted, I'm not going to read this out loud to you, but this is an instructional vision for literacy in Reading Public Schools that is a working draft that we are working on. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the process, but this is something we found really important when we started this work of implementation and thinking through our middle school, going through a curricular review. We really wanted to have an instructional vision that sort of guided all of this work, and everything could sort of flow back to this instructional vision to make sure this is like the beacon, right? Like where we all want to be in Reading Public Schools. So it started actually with the ARC implementation team last year, which consisted of teachers, reading literacy specialists in grades 3 to 5. Also got taken to the middle school literacy leadership team for some feedback. It's It's going to go back to the ARC implementation team this year because we have K-2 teachers who are also in there. And then we will bring to the high school ELA department and then gather feedback from the community. So that's sort of the process by which we're going to make this not a working draft, but finalize it for all of our students.
Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, just a little bit. So I want to just remind you, you've heard us talk in many of our presentations about the fact that we have a specific curriculum review process that we use in Reading. It's based on documentation that's been provided from DESE in regards to the best practices for reviewing curriculum. And we've talked to you many times when we were in the Learn and Prepare or in the Investigate and Select, kind of where we are with middle school literacy right now. And those are exciting places to be. And often those are the parts of the curriculum review process that get the most attention. And once we move past that, it just sort of falls off. But we really believe, something that our central office believes and my team and our principals believe, is that the two final phases, launch and implementation and monitor, are actually the most essential if we are to see that these new curricular resources are going to do what we want them to do and to really make changes for our students and support our teachers. So right now with K-2, we're in what we would consider our launch phase. Launch is really the first few months of implementation, when teachers are just getting into those instructional materials, learning the ins and outs of what the teacher resources look like, trying out the classroom routines, learning the logins, looking through all of the books and materials that are on hand in their classroom, getting everything set up. Launch and implement monitor, if you see that those circles overlap, it's not just because I couldn't fit them on the screen, although that was would have been challenging, I have to admit, because launch sort of morphs into implement and monitor as you go through those first few months. So K-2 will be morphing into implement and monitor, over the next month or two. Grades 3 to 5 are securely in that implement and monitor because this is their second year in the program. And so just understanding that the reason that we think it's important to understand the implementation plan is because it is so essential to the success of the program and the investment that the community has made in this program. Next slide, please. So just to dig in a little bit deeper to the implement stage and what happens, this is a slide from our curriculum review process, and I've linked the Google link at the end of this presentation if you want to look through and really read through the entire process and understand all the steps. But implement is the final step. And you'll see, I won't read this for you, but you'll see that there are some bulleted sort of activities that happen during the implement stage. And so tonight we're going to talk through each of those and how it looks in relation to ARC Core. So specifically, we'll look at the professional learning that happens. We'll talk about the implementation team, which is a key part of ensuring that the plan is being lived out and that we're able to monitor. We're going to talk a little bit about our communication plan and how we educate families, the ongoing monitoring of the curriculum implementation, and then finally, how we make adjustments along the way. So that's sort of the structure of our presentation tonight. One of the things I just want to mention, just to give you a full sense of the work that our teachers are engaged in right now, is that this curriculum review process is our Reading context and our plan that we've outlined. But we also just understand and try to keep in the back of our mind that we're operating in a system where we're asking for really complex change from our teachers. This is not just swapping in one book for another. This is really a shift in how they teach, what they teach. And so part of our conversations are always around, and with our working with our art coaches, how do we help our teachers really make that complex change? This is just one model that's out there for managing complex change, but it gives you an idea of sort of some of the things we have to consider. We have to ensure that all of the components our staff need are in place. And if there are missing pieces, if we don't clearly identify that vision, as Erin said, or if we aren't really developing the different skills our teachers need, we know that we're not going to have the end result we want. So this is just to let you know that we're thinking about this through that lens of complex change.
So I'm going to speak a little bit to the targeted professional development we have in K-2 and 3-5, and with our building leaders, and then some other professional development opportunities we have going on this year for our teachers that we're really excited about. So in terms of year one for K-2, like Dr. Hardy said, we're really in that launch phase, right? Like, teachers have been in Unit 1 for 6 to 7 weeks, and we are really focused on what does this look like in the classroom. We're focused on it as a district, in buildings, building leaders, that's what they're focused on, and also when ARC coaches are on site, really about like what does this look like in the classroom for K-2. We talk a lot about, and we've seen a lot of like setting up materials and learning about what all of the different pieces are. That's going to happen again in Unit 2, and it's going to happen again in Unit 3, and it's going to happen again in Unit 4 for teachers. So that's why we say that launch sort of lasts for a long time, but we'll be monitoring in the process too. There's a lot of calibrating on routines and expectations and structure, routines, expectations, and structures in that first unit to set things up for the rest of the year to make sure it's successful. We're also working to support understanding about the different shifts in teaching foundational skills, so talking about like the how, the what, the when, and the differences between what has been done before and what's being done now. So we're really working through that as we go. Really focusing on the knowledge building piece of the ARC core framework, which is new to teachers. There's a lot of focus on knowledge building, vocabulary, and really exploring that with teachers in their professional development. And then also understanding the assessments. So with the ERLA assessment, right, comes learning the new assessment, learning how to administer it, learning how to interpret the results, learning how to input it into the computer system, which is called SchoolPace, learning how to extract data from SchoolPace. So there's a lot going on in K-2 in terms of what it looks like in the classroom for our teachers. Next slide, please. So our year 2 focus with 3-5, we're still in this like, what does this look like in the classroom phase, but diving deeper into the instructional materials to leverage those knowledge building aspects. So like our teachers last year, they were exposed to all of the things K-2 are in terms of learning the new curriculum, learning all the pieces, learning the new materials, and now they're really getting to dive a little bit deeper because they know what's there, they know what's coming, and can really focus on like getting into it. Understanding the alignment of the materials in terms of grade level standards, and expectations for students, how to use the ERLA to really monitor student progress and stay on top of that, and target supports for students individually. The focus for ARC coaching this year, when coaches are on site, they're really working on strategic instruction. So that's really using the ERLA and the ERLA results to create power goals for students, to work within the toolkits in small groups. And then also in our collaborative Friday workshops, I'm really working with teachers when I have 3-5 on writing specifically, working on calibrating what the different rubrics mean, calibrating what exemplars look like, and that type of thing. So that's sort of where we're diving a little bit deeper in 3-5. In terms of our leadership team, so our building principals and assistant principals, as you remember, they have their own professional learning series with ARC, but we're really focusing on what should this look like in the classroom from a building leader's perspective. So what types of feedback are we giving? How do we improve our feedback to teachers? Understanding how they should actually use the ERLA and SchoolPace to monitor growth at a building level instead of at a classroom level or an individual student level, really diving into that data and looking at it and monitoring it frequently. Using that data to do some plan, do, study, act cycles as a cohort, and participating in learning walks. I do learning walks with principals, they do learning walks with each other, do learning walks with the ARC leadership coach, and really getting into classrooms in terms of like, what should this look like in the classroom? What should we be seeing every day? So ARC professional development details, I've talked at length with all of you about this in terms of what the professional development is, but I wanted to make sure we included it on the slide. So each school has 10 coaching visits with their ARC coach, who has remained consistent from last year. So every school has the same ARC coach. They've built relationships with teachers, really important. We have 10 days of training and coaching with building leaders with our leadership coach, Matt Rear. We're sort of we're looking at those leadership professional development sessions in terms of what principals need and what assistant principals need, because assistant principals who weren't here last year need a little bit more of an introduction to what ARC is and the foundations of it, but also then like what should it look like in the classroom. They should be focused on that too. We have collaborative workshops and district in-service days. One of the shifts that we made was we actually, based on feedback from teachers and building leaders, we switched some of our professional development with ARC. Instead of having them run virtual sessions, we actually added those into the on-site days in schools, so coaches are there, and we're doing internal collaborative workshops. Tomorrow I'm running the K-2 Unit 2 intro with our K-2 staff. And then Dr. Hardy and I participate in a network with school leaders in other districts that are utilizing our core and in sort of a similar place in terms of implementation to us. Some are a couple of years ahead, some are a year behind, but that's been really helpful too in terms of thinking about things from a district level. The additional professional development opportunity that we have this year for K-2 teachers, we are offering a Science of Reading professional learning series with the Hill for Literacy. We're partnering with them this year. The series has 10 modules that integrate current research and translate it into classroom application, all in the science of reading. We have teachers attending, we have school leaders attending, and we're really excited about that. I'm going to go too, which is fantastic. But it's a partnership that we are really excited about and really hope to grow as well. In the ARC Core implementation team, I wanted to sort of give you an update on our focus for the year. If you remember, the purpose of the ARC Core implementation team is really to support and monitor implementation as we go. It consists of teachers, special educators, literacy specialists, and K-5 general education teachers, we come together once a month. This year's focus is on communication and feedback. It's the big focus for the whole year. We want to think through what feedback loops look like at each school, and how we're getting feedback from every building, every teacher around how implementation's going, what folks need, what they need more of, what they need less of, what they're seeing as gaps as we go along. We also I take that communication to the publisher for supports in terms of clarifications that we might need, revisions that we might suggest to them, additional things that we might need. And then we're also going to focus on communication with families and communities around sort of the big shifts in language and practices and skills this year. Not a small task for my implementation team.
Sort of leads into the next slide, which I know will appear momentarily. There it is. So one of those other components of the plan that we always consider is our communication plan, and in particular with families and with the community. One of the ways that we're leveraging that this year is working with our building leaders around what they're presenting. So when building leaders were having their back to school nights, open houses this fall, that was one of the things that we talked about. How are you going to share, and how will staff share about the new program and what that looks like in your building. One of the things that you've heard us talk about, we meet twice a month with the 5 elementary principals and the learning and teaching team. And one of the topics of conversation that we've done, and we've had the principals do a little sharing out around, is how they're communicating with families and what the structure that they're putting in place. We have schools piloting sort of some different approaches, and we'll have them come back and share out, and hope to let those best practices rise to the top with our 5 principals. One of the things that we are also focused on, especially with K-2, but I think it also does apply with grades 3, 4, and 5, and this is what Erin was mentioning with the implementation team, is just really thinking about what are the essential components that families need to understand the difference of. So this is working not only with the building leaders, but starting to flow down to staff as far as when you're communicating with families about simple shifts. Like what might your routine look like around a spelling list, or something that might look different or feel different? What is the expectation for students to be reading at home? Those are the things that the implementation team this year will really work to say, what are the things that have to have sort of a consistent implementation, everyone does the same, and then what are the things that will still be classroom or teacher dependent? The other piece too that is important to communicate is just around grades and assessment, because that's the forward-facing piece that comes home to the families. Families can expect that there were revised indicators for grades 3, 4, and 5 when they've received that first report card this fall that are aligned with the curriculum and with the pacing of ARCCOR. K-2 will do that work in June 2024 once they've made the full shift to the program. The other thing that will be different this year, especially in grades 3, 4, and 5, is that teachers have begun to speak, I think, a bit more in detail with families about the results of the ERLA. And so families can expect that teachers are going to talk about the strengths that have been identified for their students through that assessment, and then any focus areas that will be worked on with their student. So the next component in our planning process is how are we going to have ongoing monitoring of this plan and of the curriculum itself. So in the first few years, when we're focused on that idea of what do we see in the classroom, that's the spot where we actually visibly want to see what's happening in the classroom. So the use of walkthroughs and observations, and we look particularly for things like, are the new materials being used? Have teachers been able to make that switch? Do we see the instructional methods that the new program recommends or that is required? Do we see those in place and being used? Do we see that teachers have adopted those routines? And then finally, do we really see that our students' voice and that student work is central to the learning process? Another piece separate from observations in that first year or two that we're looking at is the student work product. So like one of the things that we did last year was to look at some of our writing samples that informed some of our next steps and some of the work Erin will do with the teachers this year, 3 to 5 teachers during the workshop days. We also, one of the things I really love about this program is because of the way School Pace has structures and systems for teachers to gather very specific data on students, it's very easy for us to monitor how the assessment is going, how teachers are able to access it. So the first layer, of course, is like supporting teachers around successfully using that platform. It can be a little daunting where teachers might be accustomed to keeping notes on a clipboard while they're working with students. Now we're really asking them to shift and to be entering, if possible, directly into the laptop, because there's a lot of data that's entered. If not, then taking the notes from the laptop and putting it into the platform at a later date. But we really are regularly looking and monitoring to make sure teachers are on track. And if we see pockets of folks that need extra support, working with the building leaders to troubleshoot with those teachers, whether it's tweaking a routine or providing an extra support. That level of monitoring and support for teachers is just really rare in an implementation because we don't usually have so much data coming in. So it's a really exciting thing. So our grades 3 through 5 are in year 2. So I'll speak now a little bit about what we do in year 2, 3, and even beyond. So this doesn't stop after year 2 or even 3. It sort of continues. So we continue to obviously look at what's happening in the classroom, but we also want to say, like, how well is it working and what can be improved? We know without a doubt any new initiative, program, curricular material we put in place is going to have things that are really great about it, and it's going to have things over time that need to be adjusted, supported, or tweaked. And so we don't expect this implementation to be any different. So the things that we look at to try to make those decisions will be monitoring, of course, our student growth and achievement from some of those bigger assessments like MCAS, but also obviously through the use of the ERLA. Some other important indicators that we will consider in years 2, 3, and beyond are some other indicators. We will look at things like referrals for IEPs. We'll continue to look at our DIBELS results over time. So those other pieces of information that feed in to how our students are doing. Feedback is also important. Our teachers know a lot. They're the ones in the classroom every day with students, so their feedback, student feedback, also helps us to determine how well implementation is going and the success of the program. And then the communication loops that Erin was talking about that'll be put in place with the implementation team are also important. And those are the ones that allow us to be a little bit more flexible in the moment and to really think about supports and things that have to change, quickly. And that's actually the final step of our plan. If you don't mind advancing, we'll talk a little bit about that. So this is where a very important part of any implementation plan is thinking through how are we going to respond and adjust if either something in the implementation plan isn't going well, and/or if we find, as we start rolling out the program, that there's parts that we want to bolster or put additional structures in place, which again is predictable, and those are things that we expect to have to do. So one of the ways we do that is by ensuring that we have data collection at every single step of the way. So all of the things that we've been talking to you about, we ensure that whether it's through PD, when it's the implementation team, when we're meeting with our building leaders, that we are collecting data on how things are going, what's working, what's not, so that if we need to make an adjustment, we know exactly where that fine tuning has to happen. Just to give you an example of some of the ways that because we've already done this, this is our second year, we've been already having plenty of opportunities where we needed to adjust our plan. We adjusted our PD plan. We took on a different approach with our K-2 teachers because we learned what worked well with our 3 to 5 teachers and where the deficits were. So that's just an example. The other thing we had done last year, just looking at our ERLA data as it was coming in and some of our classroom observations, is we had worked with our building leaders to have a focus on our grade 3 students last year based on some of the pieces that we saw about implementation. Another thing that Erin has been instrumental in is, as she mentioned, we reworked our coaching plan this year. And really the publisher sort of had a set plan of how they do things, and we said basically, like, here's what we've learned, here's what we want. And they've been really great in adjusting to sort of our unique schedule and how professional learning gets rolled out, and also what we saw worked and what didn't work for our teachers. And then the example too that we've shared, but just speaking to it again, using our PD time and our collaborative time with teachers to align on certain structures in the program that either we feel just need some further documentation, or we want our teachers to really sit and talk and hash out exactly what that looks like. And so writing is one example of that. We feel that giving our teachers time to collaborate and talk about some of the specific details and create some internal documents around that is going to be a way to adjust and improve the results that we're seeing. So.
Okay, so, questions, comments?
I think we have 2 more.
Yeah, I think there were 2 more.
All right,
Totally good.
I didn't want to go to the next, like, the other.
That's all right. I can start talking about one of them. How's that? So we wanted to give you an update on our core in the first 7 weeks of school, and just sort of let you know sort of where we are with K-2, with 3 to 5. So it says on the slide the ERLA assessment is near complete at 97% of all students. I checked literally right before I came up here. We're actually at 98% of students have been assessed, so I was excited that we got to add a percent there. And also 72% of our students have identified power goals, which is a pretty big deal because K-2 teachers haven't created power goals yet, but they're diving right in. They're looking at the data. They're figuring it out. Our coaches are coming next week and working with all the schools specifically on power goals and strategic instruction. So the 72% of students already having power goals in I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Folks are currently in Unit 1, which really sets up consistent routines and structures and expectations for kids. And strategic instruction officially starts next week. All of the toolkits for K-2 just came this week. Kids will have power goals entered. Coaches will be on site, so they'll be able to jump into those toolkits next week. But 3 to 5 are already underway for certain in a lot of classrooms. Unit 2 launches in late October, which is why K-2 is getting their intro tomorrow. That unit is on informational research at all the different grade levels. And by the end of October, all schools will have already had 3 coaching sessions. So what we did with the ARC coaches, one of the adjustments we made was really front load a lot of the coaching. And K-2 is getting a lot of focus sort of at the beginning, but as the year goes on, 3 to 5 will also get it too. They have been already, but there's been a little bit more focus on K-2, obviously, at the beginning of the year. And I have some early observations for you. We've seen really strong routines and structures in place in K-5 in walkthroughs, but building leaders report, all the building leaders have reported that they're really strong routines and structures, and they're super impressed. Our leadership series coach, Matt Rear, was here last week and walked around to all the schools. He visited all the schools over 2 days, and he was incredibly impressed with how well it's going already, specifically with K-2, who's just started this, and it's brand new to them. But one of the things that was also noted was that 3 to 5 are really already building on instructional practices, and we're seeing more robust instruction in year 2. Like I said, they had the materials last year. You know, it was a lot, but they've really dug in and know what they're doing, know the materials, know when it's happening, and they've seen it before. And that's showing already, which is super impressive. K-2 teachers jumped right in. They managed learning not only the new framework in Unit 1, but also the assessment system, including giving the assessment to all of the kids while they were still doing the framework, and putting it into school pace for data, which is super impressive in 7 weeks. Some specific highlights that we've seen, and I'm going to talk more about this in December, obviously, but the early literacy screener that we switched to uses DIBELS, and we've already seen in one grade 3 classroom, it was reported to me that having both the ERLA and the DIBELS results was a real game changer, because it really helped to pinpoint not only a specific skill, but specific error patterns that a student was having, and that teacher was able to jump right in within the first 6 weeks of school and start working with that kid immediately, which is pretty huge. One first grade team of teachers at one of the schools noted to their principal that our core has everything you need and it's all in one place, which I wasn't here when you all went through the curricular review process, but that was one of the big things. I know that was really important, that everything was in one place and people didn't have to pull from all sorts of different resources, but that it was all there. So to me, that was a really cool thing to hear from a principal, that a group of teachers had said that. In the last slide are just some additional resources for you all, for folks in the community. It has the thematic units, it has the curricular review process that we use in Reading, and some other articles on there on our core and the science of reading, just in case anybody wants to read them. Now questions, Tom.
Questions for anybody in the room?
Question. The things that I love about this, about our core, is the coaching, the, how teachers can put the data in, and that just automatically, they know how to target each student. Can I just ask you a question about the 10 coaching visits from our core coach per school? Is that per grade? 10?
So it's 10 days.
It's
10 days of coaching. So they're there the whole day, K-5.
okay, so they hit.
They hit. So they do it in different formats. So a couple of the visits are virtual visits. So when it's virtual visits, they'll have either one-on-ones with teachers, or they'll have like a grade level worth of teachers and have like a professional learning community meeting. I know the last visit we just had was a virtual. We had an in-person visit, and then we had a virtual visit. And the virtual visit was really, for K-2, it was really like, what are your questions? Like, what do you need right now? What can I do for you? And they got to meet one-on-one with the coaches. And then 3 to 5, it was more grade level based in terms of like, what do grade levels need and what are they seeing? The in-person days look a little bit different. Sometimes coaches model lessons and then have a debrief with teachers after they've modeled the lesson in a classroom. Sometimes they attend like grade level meetings and talk through sort of whatever's coming up next and whatever teachers need to know, specifically with K-2 this year, right, with the new things. But this year they're looking at a little bit more student work with 3 to 5. So it sort of can look different based on what's happening at that point in the year and what teachers and building principals and assistant principals need.
Do the teachers feel like that amount of coaching is enough for them?
That's a good question.
I know they always have a resource, but like I look at that 10, I'm like, okay, that's great. If they're there all day, they can hit
They do,
every grade.
they do.
right?
They hit every grade.
Right, and then they know they have a resource because they've built up a relationship.
Yep.
Right?
I mean, we even have teachers emailing their ARC coaches and ARC coaches emailing back, and the teachers are fantastic about reaching out when they need something, and the ARC coaches are pretty fantastic about reaching
So I guess
back.
My only thing is, do the teachers feel like they're getting what they need?
It's a great question.
That would be my only concern. I love that piece of it.
Me too.
But is it enough for them? Hopefully it is.
I think that's a question I can ask them.
Yeah,
It's important to ask them.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah?
Anything on that a little bit?
Yep.
Maybe my memory is wrong, but I thought we were sold 10 days for each 3 through 5 in the first year, 10 days for K through 2 in the second year, and another 4 or 6 days for 3 through 5 in the second year.
No, it's always been per building.
It's always been per
Yep.
building?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna go back and check on my notes. I thought there was a second group specifically for 3 through 5 that was ramped down for the second year, while the first year got the full 10.
We can check on that.
I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive that's what I remember.
I remember that too.
So
Yeah, we'll definitely check.
if that's the case, then we should go back and make sure we get what.
Yeah. No, 100%, 100%.
If it's not the case, then I'm sorry, but I thought that's what I remember.
Maybe that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
For the 10, I'm like, okay, so that's 10, right.
We also had 2 additional days in August when all 3 coaches were on site, and they worked with just K to 2, too. So they had full-day workshops with K to 2 those first 2 days of school as well.
Can I just,
Any other questions?
I just wanted to, so do the teachers prefer virtual or in person?
Oh, in person, I think.
Right, so do we push back when they ask for virtual?
We do push back. And we've had more in-person days. I think the virtual days do come in hand. So let me rephrase. I think part of what we did this year in terms of asking ARC to not run our workshop days is because teachers did not prefer those workshop days to be held virtually, because we had all of 3 to 5 virtual with our core coaches not able to sort of like be together or be like in separate grade level groups. So that's what we took off the table. I think the virtual visits that they have with the schools, they're so personal in one-on-one or with small groups. It's not like a whole virtual training. It's just with a specific group of people. Folks have been saying that those are pretty helpful.
I think that's the package too. We definitely could purchase more in-person days if we wanted
Yeah.
to.
Oh, yeah.
But their 10 days is a mix of virtual and in-person. I mean, more would always be great. I do think for our teachers though, like about once a month is a nice interval, because it does take teachers time to try things out, to live it for a little bit more, and then to have that coach come back. The other piece too, I'll say too, is I've just been really proud of our building leaders and how they've embraced this work. And I feel like they, in some ways, continue to coach and to support teachers in the interval. And as Erin said, it's not uncommon for principals or a teacher to email our coach with a quick question. They're extremely responsive, so we do have that access. We also email, folks at the publisher with any question we have, and they get back to us quickly. So I think it is, more would always be great, but this is a really high level of coaching for our teachers. If we someday had, in-house literacy coaches, once this PD opportunity goes away, we definitely could talk about what level we'd want, but I do think that access to a consistent coach is really important.
So you, thank you for all of this.
Yeah.
By the way, this is a very comprehensive presentation. You touched on this a little bit, but I know a lot of our K through 2 teachers are veteran teachers. They've been in the district a long time. They've been teaching reading a long time, because it's such a huge part of K through 2 education. I'm just wondering what the general vibe and feedback is from them, and how they're feeling about this transition. What's your sense?
I mean, I think it's hard, right? Like, they're also in year 2 of a new curriculum. So I think that's like an additional layer that we don't talk about a ton, but like they're in year 2 of a new curriculum. They had math last year, and this year reading, writing, foundational skills, all new. So I think it's overwhelming. I will say it's been a very smooth rollout so far from a district perspective and just from talking to building leaders. I haven't gotten into classrooms a ton yet because it's early in the year and I want people to have like space before I'm like walking around in their classrooms. But I've been in a few and it's been really smooth. Really smooth. I continue to be impressed every day that I am here with the Reading Public Schools teachers. They are phenomenal, phenomenal. And like managing some real complex change as we go here. It's something I definitely pay attention to and want to pay attention to, but I've been trying, I just want to give people time to sort of like get into it. And then Unit 2 is different. Unit 2 is like a whole different ballgame. And now like the routines and systems they've set up in their classrooms are put to the test with like this new informational research coming into. So I just want to make sure I'm there supporting them, through it.
I do think one piece that speaks to how well it's going, how smooth it's been, when we look back on 3 to 5, it's not a competition, but we look back on how teachers grades 3 to 5 did in that initial assessment and getting in the data, what we see with K to 2 is just phenomenal. Like it's going in faster. They're done before, they're gonna be done before grades 3 to 5. So I think that speaks to the place that they're in. They've sort of seen it in action a little bit, so it isn't completely brand new and foreign. And they've also had a year to sort of wrap their brains around the fact that this is coming, and we're going to be implementing this. And I do think that they've embraced that. But as Aaron has alluded to, we're just at the beginning of our journey with them. They have a lot to still learn. But I think are we getting any feedback that, teachers are apprehensive or not sure? No, none of that. From, a consensus, I guess I would say. We definitely have had teachers, come and ask us specific questions, which we really value. But on the whole, our teachers are, stepping up, implementing it, trying it out, asking all the right questions.
I think too, K to 2 has the 3 to 5 teachers to sort of lean on in terms of okay, what's coming next? What is this thing that I have in my room? What is that? What am I going to be getting next in my classroom? What's coming? So I think 3 to 5 teachers have been invaluable in that as well.
I want to add one piece of context I think was interesting from just talking to local superintendents too of districts that still have our previous literacy curriculum. They're getting more pressure from their teachers to make the shift now. I think there's becoming more sort of awareness around sort of some of the deficiencies or ineffectiveness of our previous literacy curriculum, to the point where I was reading an article the other day of a local community who's having some tense labor negotiations, and one of the asks from the union was, not only around, COLAs or not even around working conditions, but also the demand for higher level of urgency from the school district and shifting away from units of study, which I thought was really interesting. That was put as part of a part of the package for negotiations, right? But I think it does speak to that there is, I think, a growing interest and awareness of shifting away in the same district, same way we have. Yet that doesn't minimize the challenge and lift of actually them living that and doing that, particularly for a teacher who's done it for so long. But I just think that's interesting context.
Especially since Columbia said, Carla, go ahead when they have a series.
In terms of our assistant principals, what does their involvement look like with this process? I'm not asking for the specifics, and I know that the principals and assistant principals in each building were kind of figuring out what they were going to do, but what do you see with that?
We really see that, both of our building leaders are instructional leaders. As Aaron alluded to, we had our assistant principals participate in some specific training that kind of got them up to speed on our core and filled in some of the gaps that they missed from not being here last year. But they are, when our leadership coach comes, they have dedicated time with the APs. So we really are seeing that as a dual focus. It's really not enough to just have one building leader that knows and understands about literacy instruction in an elementary school. It really, every leader that's in that building, also including, our special ed staff as well. That this really, everyone who's there and in a leadership role has to understand and support. So it's a great question. Thank you.
Assistant principals were teachers last year, right? So they did experience it as a teacher.
One of them
One,
did. One taught at a lower grade.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
unfortunately.
Okay.
And the one is on maternity leave, too.
yes,
Yeah.
so,
Okay. All right, so a couple of things. You mentioned standards alignment earlier.
yeah.
Have you looked at that as well with regards to pacing? Are we completing the standards in a suitable period of time throughout the year? Do we have to speed up the pace? Have we looked at that at all so far?
We've looked at it a little bit. We looked at it a little bit in June when we were looking at like changing the report card and assessment and making sure that what we were reporting was actually on pace with what we were teaching. I think that's something we need to continue to look at in terms of standards alignment and just making sure that like the 8-week units, the 9-week units are 8-week units and 9-week units, and we keep going. I think that's hard in like year one of implementation. But I think 3 to 5 this year, at least in Unit 1, is finding it a little bit easier to move along because they know what's happening, right? So I think that's something, like, that's a continuing monitor piece that we continue to do.
And you have report cards there in the answer. That was my other question. One of my other questions. Are we still doing the BPME, or have we finally
still-
gotten rid of that?
We have not made any changes to the,
There's no E anymore.
There
More
were E a few
seating?
years ago.
Wonderful.
Yeah, there's
Can we re-examine that at some point in time?
a full review of the elementary report card.
Full review.
Yeah. At one point, that was a rather hot topic of
Oh,
conversation.
okay. To get the backstory
Elementary
on that.
report card and
Yeah.
whatnot. So if we're modifying it, we're keeping the.
We haven't,
BPMs.
correct, we haven't adjusted any of the indicators. We've just looked at the areas that we're measuring for students.
Okay. Okay.
And when they're assessed, in some cases.
And you've said DIBELS multiple times. You've said our early literacy, but I'm tying those two together. That's Amplify, right?
It is, so Amplify is the company.
Yeah.
M-Class is the, like, platform that houses the data and houses it historically year over year. DIBELS is the assessment.
Which DIBELS?
Eighth, DIBELS eighth, plus there are a couple of add-ons that Massachusetts recommends that we are doing as well.
They hit on a lot of the other questions. So I just want to thank you as well for the time. Good job.
Thank you.
Deep dive in February.
You got it. You got it.
So thank you.
Yeah,
both.
thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you to our principals and teachers.
Yeah, yeah.
They're the
for
ones
certain.
doing the-
They are the ones doing the hard work.
Okay, with that said, we will now move on to our FY '23 end of year financial update. Dr. Minto, I think you have the floor.
Tell your mother I said.
So, thanks very much for that. I've got, so pleased to present budget documents. There's a set of 3 that are in this particular packet for your review. My plan was to present the 3 of them consecutively, and then give you a couple of key points on each, and then open the floor for questions. I will, of course, ask for the superintendent's support in this, or anybody else's in terms of institutional memory and so on. So the first one is the end-of-year financial summary report, so just how we closed out the year, fiscal year '23. So we met all of fiscal year '23 financial obligations with a total appropriation of $51,703,263, and closed with a fund balance of $102,002, which has been turned back to the town's free cash fund. So you'll note that the $102,000 represents roughly 0.2% of the total appropriated budget. So a very favorable trend at the bottom of the first page with regard to free cash being turned back. On the next page of that report, there's some highlights with regard to expenditures and items where we didn't spend as much money. We then moved on to the budget transfers, so there were 4 that were requested that were mentioned by Tom earlier. And so this is done on a quarterly basis. There's a request for transfers, and this is for us to end the year or end each cost center at a 0 or positive dollar balance. That's then followed by the grant summary. So there's a summary of all the grants that we received there, along with the spending deadline dates, and then definitions are offered for both the federal and the state grants. Rounding out the report are the revolving accounts, and review of those, and then the gifts and donations. I just want to make a couple of notes. One was the band negative balance was pointed out to me. That's a situation that we were working with the town on rectifying, and I believe that's been completed today. And so that issue should be resolved. There should not be a negative balance for band. And Rise Preschool, just as a side note, spent a little bit more than expected. We were able to furnish all of their classrooms with libraries and bookshelves. So that's that. Fiscal year, the end of year financial summary report. The next piece of your packet has to do with the end of year, also the end of year report, but one that's furnished to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And so we have to meet both education and state aid compliance, and we have to adhere to federal requirements. And so they use the data that we submit in that report for a statistical analysis, and that's, used by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for everything from per pupil spending to average teacher salaries and information on school choice. And the last item, budget-related item that's in your packet has to do with the Special Education Reserve Report, which was mentioned by Tom earlier, and that has to do with the recently revised policy. We had policy DBDA establishing that Special Education Reserve Fund, and it's meant to provide for unanticipated or unbudgeted costs. So in the area of special education, recovery high school programs, out-of-district tuition, or out-of-district transportation. And so you'll see that we've kept that balance at $175,000. That represents 0.28% of net school spend. And so Massachusetts general law allows us to get up to 2% of net school spend. Okay? So those are the three items that are in your packet. Happy to open it up for questions.
Looking across, any questions? Chuck, you want to say something? I can see it.
I'm just thinking about the reserve fund and all the conversation we had on that. I don't really have a question.
So on that, just a quick note. Last year when we were talking about it, we were given numbers based upon required net school spend. The actual regulation is based upon actual net school spend. We have a significant difference between those two. If you look at our spreadsheet there, and that leads to a rather significant difference in what the minimum and maximums are. Our required spend for FY23 was only $46.8 million. Our actual spend was $61.5 million. And that's why last year when we were talking, we kept saying, oh, we need to get to about 950,000, 915,000, something like that. But in conversations, and Kate followed up for us with DESE, it's the actual spend that matters, which is why this number at 0.29 is so much lower than we thought it was going to be. But that's also why we put into the report that the 1% target is now 615,000. I think it was also important that we put in there that you can see it grows 21,000 a year, right? It'll grow less as our net, or more, depending on our net school spend growth, but from FY22 to FY23, it went from 594,000 to 615,000 as the 1% target, not even the 2%, which is the legal limit. Our policy limit is 1%. So we have plenty of headroom to get to that 615. And there's probably no way once we get to 1% that just interest is going to have us go over our net school spend unless for some reason there's a massive cut in our net school spending. So just something to think about as we look at it towards the end of the year. This is our first cut of this report, so if anybody wants to see anything else or has any other questions, we can probably facilitate what that is, right?
Okay, that's fine.
Certainly be interesting to keep an eye on that, though.
Yep, especially considering other conversations we're having. So with that said, and seeing no further questions, we do have a motion here for the budget transfers. So Aaron, why don't you read that off for us?
Can you just verify the correct numbers there?
290, 187, 272, 1409, 3,000. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Motion to transfer $204,290 from regular day and transfer $187,272 to special education, $14,009 to administration, and $3,009 to athletics.
Seconded by Carla. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? And all opposed? And it passes. Okay, Dr. Pinto, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we will entertain our last motion of the evening, which will send us into executive session. I am proclaiming that it will have adverse impact on the school committee's bargaining decision if we do not go into executive session, and we will not be returning. So, Erin, go ahead.
Move to adjourn to executive session and not to return to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, Reading Teachers Association, Reading Paraeducators Association, and Reading Administrative Secretaries Association, as the chair declares an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the Reading School Committee.
Seconded by Sarah. Okay, executive session's a roll call vote. So Chuck?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
And Tom, yes. And we are adjourned from regular session.